Hello and welcome to the Serve the Wyoming Way podcast. This podcast is brought to you by the Grizzly Six. Today is our second episode, and our goal is to provide awareness to conversations our leaders are having across the state, in addition to help educate our listeners about opportunities in the Wyoming Army National Guard and volunteer opportunities in their very own communities. I'm CW4 Nathan Galloway from the Wyoming Public Affairs office, and I will be facilitating this podcast here in the windy city of Cheyenne. I'd like to welcome our guest on today's show, Chief Jason Caughey, the Fire Chief for Laramie County Fire Authority here in Cheyenne.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Chief Caughey is also an adjunct professor for Laramie County Community College, where he teaches the principles of fire behavior. Before arriving in Cheyenne in 2011, he was the fire chief of the Gore Hill Fire Rescue in Great Falls, Montana. He also spent 10 years working for the Montana Fire Service Training School as a regional instructor and a regional training manager for the state of Montana. So we're glad to have you, Chief, and thank you for taking time to visit with us. Our second guest here, who will lead today's conversation, is Brigadier General Steve Alkire. General Alkire is the commander and the Assistant Adjutant General of the Wyoming Army National Guard. General Alkire is responsible for the readiness, training, leadership, and strategic planning for more than 1,500 soldiers in support of state and federal mission requirements. He's been serving our country for over 35 years. Welcome, General Alkire.
Good to be here, Chief.
So let's dive into the conversation, Chief Caughey, and we'll start with you. What is the mission of the Laramie County Fire Authority?
So we're here to serve our community by our people. And what that means is we're called throughout the day and night to be able to provide a service to our citizens. And we do that through a combination of volunteer members from our community and also a small paid staff and a college residence program. Really, we stand for what we call service, ownership, unity, and progressive. And those are our values. We want to make sure service is our primary value. And it's not just service to the citizens of Laramie County, but it's the service to each other as members of our community in emergency services. So that's what we do. We are here to serve our community.
Thank you. And it sounds like, General Alkire, it sounds like, we've had a little bit of discussion before we sat down here to record, and it sounds like those values line up very well with the same things that we believe in the Army, in the Army National Guard, those same kind of values. Can you talk to that a little bit?
You bet. So we always want to partner. Partnerships are important for the Guard. And so we're pretty deliberate in who we want to partner with. And so as talking to General Porter, the boss, he talked about, hey, what are some of these partnerships with these that we haven't had before? But some of these folks that we have values or mission sets that are in common. And so I met with Chief Shad Cooper here 2-3 months ago. And really our recruiting problems and challenges are the same. And so first and foremost, it's number one, how can we help each other? If we have the ability to. But also, it's more just about getting to know each other. At some point, Chief Caughey and a member of the Guard will cross paths, and it'll be at a time when there's somebody's having a real bad day. And I tell you, Chief Caughey and the members of his team and the guardsmen who he interacts with, they're not going to be strangers. They're going to have a common bond. And so it's important that we recognize that. And so as Chief Caughey and I have talked for the past hour or so, hey, that just has reinforced that. If we have the ability to have a guardsman, we brought 3 soldiers with us today. Mm-hmm. And I think one's just about convinced to work for you, Chief.
I think we ended an application already.
I think he's chawing at the bit. That's what we want.
Right.
An opportunity for a soldier to serve in his or her community, that's a win-win for both of us.
In the conversation, Chief Caughey, we were standing out there in the group in your common area there, and you made a comment. I actually came in and wrote it down. I thought it was a brilliant comment, and then it speaks to exactly what you're saying, sir. Is we shouldn't be exchanging business cards at an event site, and that's that. I feel like it's kind of what you're expressing as well, General Alkire, is we need to know each other, because you're exactly right. At some point, our formation and Chief Caughey, your formation, are going to cross paths, and they need to know and understand each other a little better maybe and have a stronger partnership than we do.
Yeah, I think there's a message there, right, that the Wyoming National Guard or your local fire department, whether it's volunteer, combination, or paid, serve the citizens of Wyoming and our visitors. And part of your mission is to do that also in the time of need, natural disaster, emergencies, as declared by the governor and your boss. We shouldn't be figuring out who we are right then. We should have built those relationships and recognize that your soldiers are living in our communities, and many of our firefighters are your soldiers already. And let's enhance that. Let's grow that so that way when we have those natural disasters like Snowmageddon or tornado or the floods up in Lander or wherever in our state, we already built those relationships and we're prospering every day because we've fostered those. We understand your set of guidelines to work within, and you understand the limitations of what we have to work with, and we pair together. It's a big piece of this, I think, Chief or General.
Yeah, absolutely, Chief, absolutely.
So in the just out of curiosity, here in the Laramie County Fire Authority, how many full-time people do you have? How many volunteers do you have?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have 121 members currently.
Okay.
Of that, we have basically an executive staff that's full-time. So our chief officers are full-time because they have to do that daily administration stuff, right? The paperwork. They don't always necessarily get to go deal with the fun toys, but we need those folks to be able to organize training, to organize our engineering, to organize the equipment, to make sure that we're mission ready. The rest of that is, the bulk of them are volunteers. And those are men and women from our community that maybe doctors, lawyers, construction workers, work for the school board or the school district. They serve many different hats. But what they find when they come work and volunteer with their local organization is they find a sense of community pride. They find that pride in serving their community. They find camaraderie and family, which provides a different component to their life that maybe they weren't getting in their full-time career. So that's been fun. On top of that, we have 18 college students that are from around the country that live in our
I was
stations.
just going to ask you about some of the additional benefits that you'd been telling us about.
Yeah, and what that really was to fill a gap in our system, which is the daytime response. For many folks prior to COVID, maybe not so much after COVID, daytime for a lot of businesses had to sacrifice that member to participate with us, and that wasn't always easy. It impacted their business financially, and maybe it just wasn't even possible. So we filled that gap with those college students, and really what we're trying to do is grow young men and women that are going to get a college degree, they're going to get national certifications, they're going to get experience, that they can go back to their communities and either continue as a volunteer or end up with a career in the emergency services.
In the emergency services. You know, and that, again, the things that you were speaking about, although I'm not a volunteer firefighter myself, but they align so well with what we have to offer in the Guard. You know, I'm just looking here at the talking points, and you know, number one, people are a priority. Leaders in the Wyoming Guard get to know their soldiers. This is exactly what Chief Caughey is talking about. Can you speak to what we have to offer as we develop our partnership with the firefighters?
I mean, you see about what Chief Caughey said. He's got 121 and 10 full-time folks who do the non-fun stuff.
Right.
Well, that's really how the Guard is built. I mean, on the Army Guard, we've got 1,511 soldiers. Of that, about 400 are full-time. Well, they don't get to play on the toys. They're not shooting HIMARS. They're not flying Blackhawks every day. They're paying people. They're doing evaluations. They're doing the non-fun stuff. So, gee, very similar to how we're constructed. And so that's the first thing. The second thing would be service to your community.
Absolutely.
You know, I mean, we want soldiers to serve in their communities. We've got 16 armories in Evanston, Afton, you know, Warland, Rock Springs. We want those soldiers to work in their communities so they'll, and I think what Chief Caughey said is when he said, hey, it's tough to, the college representatives that they have cover the daytime shift. So, you know, he's trying to balance employers and families. Those are the things we're trying to balance as well. We don't want to overload a soldier. We want them to serve, but, you know, be fair to their employer, be fair to their families. At the same time, contribute to the Guard, and they'll learn a skill set in the Guard. All those types of things. So we've got so much in common. I think we can partner, but really it boils down to when you talk to a young volunteer fireman or a young soldier, I tell you, you can't but help be impressed by who they are and why they have a desire to serve. And you should, Chief Caughey has a story, about how he got to be a firefighter.
Yep.
And it ain't about making money.
No,
And
it's
so
not.
if you talk to these young soldiers and these young firefighters, they will tell you the same story. So,
Yeah.
it's a testament to the youngest generation
Absolutely.
and how great they are.
Absolutely. Another common thread that I've noticed as we've visited for a little while is it seems every time that General Alkire mentions a different fire chief in the state. It seems like that person. And so, your community is a small community within the state, the same as ours. We have our 16 armories around the state, but overall, we're kind of a small community within the state as the Army Guard as well. So again, our communities line up. We're everywhere. We may answer to different bosses, different fire chiefs, different commanders, what have you, but we're everywhere across the state.
We're in the state. Your soldiers and our volunteers across the state are serving our communities. And General, you are spot on with. It's a special person that's willing to go that extra mile for their community and serve. And we're proud of those folks. You're proud of your soldiers. We're proud of the volunteers across our state that are doing that, because it's not fun. You're out on the worst nights of the year. You might miss that Christmas dinner or that your son or daughter's birthday, but the reward that you get by the camaraderie, the teamwork, the pride that you have in being able to be there for your neighbor's bad day or bad night outweighs your own sacrifice that you give up for that. And like your industry, those community members are in our community, and they're bringing back a set of skills that they're learning at the Guard that benefit our local communities. And as a volunteer service, I want to capture them and say, you can have a little family here too, where we can put some of those skills that you're learning to use here to serve our local community better. And likewise, those volunteers that are in our system that are really finding enjoyment and pride in serving their local community might say, hey, there's an opportunity for you to serve our state community and learn more skills, more trades, more crafts, more opportunity in areas that you maybe never even considered because you hadn't been exposed to it yet. So I think that's the success. As we expose men and women in our community to emergency services, you provide an opportunity for men and women of our state to see a different aspect of what they can get out of our country and out of our state and out of our local communities. And I think that's pretty powerful. And that's that symbiosis between that volunteer organization or that combination fire department and your armories around the state. Very powerful.
You bet.
And again, going back to the conversation that I was listening to earlier between you two out there, Dustin Brown told a story that was very impactful, and then you relayed some of the impressions that you have when you have young firemen go out on emergency responses and how they help bring comfort and respect and dignity to people on the worst day of their lives. And again, that is, on the Army side, we have opportunity to see that as well as we go out and serve the state throughout our communities, whether it's with the firefighting or with the flood management, and we're stacking sandbags with local communities to help protect their homes, So again, very symbiotic, to use your word, Chief, the relationships that we could have between our organizations and the mutual benefits we can offer one another, for sure.
Chief, I would say there's absolutely a service component of serving in a volunteer fire department or serving in the National Guard.
Absolutely.
But there's also some tangible benefits. If you get selected for one of these programs working for Chief Caughey, he's going to reimburse your college. if you're studying for fire science. And if you join the National Guard, pay for college. Well, we've got TRICARE insurance. We've got retirement. So there's some tangible benefits that may help make a car payment, may help, pay for some car insurance. So absolutely, you are serving your community, and that's first and foremost. But know that there's also a couple things that might help stretch your checkbook just a little bit more in the month, which certainly doesn't go unnoticed and is absolutely pretty helpful.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think one of you all have an opportunity to provide folks a broader view of what their ability is to be a part of their community. When you're 19, 20, 21, 22, 25 years old, you might not be thinking about what health insurance is going to be when you retire or what your retirement is going to be. Through your programs and through the volunteer programs, because the volunteer firefighters have a pension that if you do your 20 years, you get a small reimbursement monthly for the rest of your life. You have a similar program for your men and women that incrementally grows as they participate. And at those young ages, I wasn't thinking about it, right? I wanted to know about what was tomorrow or if I had whatever for tonight. But through your organization, you're able to provide them an insight into some things that are going to be very critical as they grow in their life. And same with the volunteer department. Whether it's that senior person, that senior soldier, or that senior volunteer firefighter putting their hand on your shoulder and saying, you might want to reconsider what you're doing there. Or maybe it's that senior soldier or senior firefighter that says, have you thought about your retirement? Because you're only 22 years old now. Your most impactful piece of your retirement is right now, today, not when you're my age at 52 years old, right? So I think there's an opportunity because as we get those young men and women as soldiers or as volunteers in our organization, we almost have a responsibility to help grow them into adults, whether it's serving their community, whether it's providing them guidance in their future as they grow into families and other aspects of their life. That's what the National Guard does, in my perspective, very well, and that's what a good volunteer organization can provide for their community members also.
Thank you. Thank you. As you're talking about the tangible benefits, it brings to mind that on the Army Guard side, we're struggling with recruiting a little bit right now. I think that's pretty well known. I'm just curious how is recruiting in the firefighting world? How does that?
Absolutely. So
what's that looking like?
So nationally at all levels. For a decade, a decade plus, the volunteer fire departments across the country and across Wyoming have struggled. We have an aging population of volunteer members. So those members have been with us 20 and 30 years. We need new blood coming in. So nationally, that's been a challenge. On the career side, it's also, post-COVID, has become a really significant downfall as far as the number of applicants we're getting to the fire service. And there's a lot of reasons. And it's easy to come up with excuses about why that is. But really what I believe it is, it's not generational, it's not millennial, it's not these labels that we put on our young folks. It really comes down to us as leaders that we're not providing or haven't recognized what we offer is very beneficial to them. We just don't message it well. We don't connect with them well. And so our job as leaders is to find those Dustin Browns and the sergeant that's out there that's passionate about the Army Guard now and say, look, they have a better story to tell than I do. Yeah. Because they can connect, right? Because the systems are solid. Our mission is solid, whether it's the fire service or the Guard. Our mission's not going to change. It's going to continue to do that. And the system that builds that mission is critical. What we have to do is connect that system to our community again. And maybe we've sat on our heels, as General Yu talked about it. 9/11 really promoted both of our organizations in the limelight. We became recognized and heroes and highly respected. And as that time fell away, maybe we didn't react fast enough to keep in the forefront of our communities to say this is what we can do and this is our partnerships. And on the volunteer side, we probably did the same thing. 9/11 hit and we had a flood of people coming in the door to sign up to be volunteer firefighters. And we took it for granted and maybe didn't reinforce our values well enough to continue that.
To continue with it.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So sometimes when you win too big, it makes you relax the next game, and you look past the next game if you're a football team or a basketball team, and you lose it, right?
Right.
Not that we've lost it, but maybe we needed to refocus a little bit on how we let those young sergeant soldiers and those young captain and lieutenant firefighters tell the stories, because they're the ones that are doing the work, having the fun. We're the ones signing the checks and doing all the paperwork stuff. Our story isn't as much fun, but theirs is really fun. So let's talk about that.
And they do have very unique and very powerful stories. Just listening to the group that was out here just a few minutes ago, and they have some very powerful stories to tell. They sure do. On the Army Guard side, sir, we have very similar struggles, I think, in our messaging and our efforts to ignite a grassroots effort back to, we're pushing the community, and we're trying to reconnect with our community like we were back even a decade ago or 15 years ago, and by doing interactions with fire departments and chambers of commerce and these entities, hopefully we can refocus that, like you said, Chief McCoy, that we might be able to refocus our game effort, for lack of a better phrase. That analogy you used with you win big at homecoming, and then the first game in the conference, you may look past it a little bit.
Yeah.
And we may be. So that's a great analogy to use. What else? What else you got, sir?
I would just say this. I would say, to a degree, we've become a little disconnected from our folks, and sometimes these young kids get a bad rap. And I say
For sure.
in general. But I tell you, if you talk to them, they're passionate and they're smart and they're courageous because they're trying things that I didn't do.
Yes.
At age 21, I worked for Coca-Cola. I worked for those for 7 years. Worked for a grocery store. I mean, I did not. Change is scary. But if you talk to these young kids, I will tell you, they are unafraid to make a change. And so what we've got to do is harness that energy, and know just because they want to think a little bit different and they want to know why they got to do something, maybe that's okay.
Yep.
And so whenever I can encourage a guardsman to join a volunteer fire department, hey, I'm a thumbs up. And we talk about, talking to one of these Chief Caughey's college resident kids, his uncle, his dad, his brother.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he went. His generational they were firemen, and so he was going to be a fireman. 74% of folks who joined the military have some sort of connection, and so we've got to preserve that heritage and that 74%. And so, I mean, my granddad served in the Navy, but that was my only connection. And so, I would say, number one, hey, give this generation a break and give them a shot. And number two, hey, if you're in the Guard and you want to join a volunteer fire organization or a volunteer organization or help your neighbor, there's no better way to be a guardsman than to do that.
Absolutely.
In general, I applaud you for what the Wyoming Guard is doing in realistically looking at, let's connect with our communities again, and let's reinforce the connections that we had. I'll tell you that we have all these fancy toys, right? Fire department's got fancy red trucks and cool extrication toys and drones. You have amazing fun stuff. But more importantly, we're not in the fun stuff business. We're in the people business. Our people serve our community. And we do that by leaders like General Alkire serving all of his soldiers to the best of our abilities to provide them opportunities to grow as individuals, to evolve. And you nailed it. It's not about the generation. They are highly intelligent. They're highly capable. They do have more belief in their capabilities to rebound from change. And change is scary for my generation, right? We got a job and we stuck with it because, boy, god darn, we didn't want to be out of money. We didn't want to risk that. These young men and women are energetic. They're smart. They're creative. They have character. They care about our society. They don't care about all the other stuff that maybe we cared about as kids, whether it was politics and race and all this other stuff. They don't worry about that. You know what they worry about? Is doing right for the person next to them. And that's your mission and that's my mission. So, yeah, we run a fire department with a lot of really fun stuff, just like all the fire departments in the state of Wyoming. But more importantly, it's about the people that do that work. And so we like to talk about being in the people business because we serve our community by our people.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Just listening to you just real quick before we wrap up here, the kids, the young people that we're trying to recruit in both of our worlds, but especially in the Army Guard, most of them that we're recruiting now were born after the start of the war. Mm-hmm. Their entire life they've been in a constant state of conflict, and they're joining knowing that there's a high probability that they're going downrange. So I think you hit it right on the head, sir. They are courageous. Yeah. And Chief, you said it, that they're not scared of change. No. And they're walking into a conversation very well educated, very well aware of the situation that they walk into. They have, they use the assets they have for information gathering much better than we did, I believe, at our age. So, well, I think we can probably wrap up now. I appreciate your time, Chief Caughey. We really do. General Alkire, thank you for coming out and spending a few minutes with us on our podcast and interacting with Chief Caughey and his staff here at the firehouse. And with that, we will go ahead and sign off of this second episode of the podcast, and we look forward to the next one. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.